So the one thing I miss most is when you score and you celebrate with them, and obviously you're pumped that you've scored, so you're celebrating kind of ferociously, but it just gets, when you see someone in the crowd going even more nuts than you, it just hypes you up even more.
This is the official Leeds United podcast.
Let's talk very briefly about the game. Patrick, I'll come to you first. How are you feeling after that?
It was frustrating, I think, more than anything. I think that game really was a 0-0. Had 0-0 written all over it. I mean,
100%.
The chance where start of the game where I shot and slipped and Rafa just couldn't get on the end of it was literally a mirror image of how they scored their goal. A slip and someone ran in and did it. So there weren't actually that many chances or clear-cut chances in the game. And I don't think we did enough. I think Marcelo said after the game that we didn't do enough attacking-wise, creating chances. And once they got the goal, they just sat in and made it hard work. So it was a tough one when you're in the change room after that, because you feel like you could have done more after those
because they scored so early and then just sat back. It was almost inevitable we were going to put so much pressure on them and batter them and get the ball out wide and move it through the middle and break the lines quickly, which we did do. But as you mentioned there, Marcelo was talking about the final third. Again, it's frustrating. If they'd scored 60th minute or so and the game continued in the same manner as what we saw, I don't think it would have been as disheartening, because, you know, we could have turned around and said, right, well, we just didn't have enough time to break them down. They were really well defensively organised for the remaining 20-30 minutes. But because it was, 80 odd minutes or something, it's painful. It's painful to take, isn't it?
All Leeds, aren't we? The official Leeds United podcast.
What a year it's been when you think about it for Leeds. Winning the Championship, promotion back to the Premier League after so long, and an incredible season so far. But it's been so weird doing it without the fans in the ground. And we've all got our own unique relationship with the club. Bex, obviously, having played for the club. Matt, you as a fan. And Pat, you've got some sort of link with Leeds as well too, I believe. Now, we know that there's hope fans can start to get back into games over the coming months, which is amazing. So with that in mind, we've had a few Leeds fans tell us what they're missing most and what they're most looking forward to as soon as they can get back to Ellen Road. So we're going to be hearing from them throughout the rest of this podcast. But firstly, Pat, I've got to ask you, how weird has it been? I know you're probably used to it now, but how weird's it been playing in an empty stadium?
The first few games were horrible. It was like back in the days when you played reserve games and it was just an empty stadium and there was no atmosphere and the game was kind of dead. And I think that it showed that when we played Cardiff for the first game away, like how flat it was. It just didn't feel right. And then we had the idea, or somebody had the idea at Leeds, of trying to pump fake crowd noise in whilst we're playing, which was disastrous. It sounded even worse. So it was an adjustment period. But it's one of them things where we have got used to it, like you said. But they're sorely missed. So the one thing I miss most is when you score and you celebrate with them. And obviously you're pumped that you've scored, so you're celebrating kind of ferociously. But it just gets, when you see someone in the crowd going even more nuts than you, it just hypes you up even more. And
Listening on together.
But Pat, you know, in that last game against Huddersfield, how aware were you that it could be the last one without fans for a while?
Well, we didn't realise it was. I think the next game was Cardiff, and we didn't actually realise until 2 days before the Cardiff game that it was going to be such a big deal. Obviously, there was talk about it, and no one had really said that the world was, or the country was going to shut down for 3 months. And so we were all planning to play the next game on the Saturday or whenever it was, and then it just abruptly stopped, and we went home. And the next day, the van turned up with the physios dropping off like exercise kit. And then it was just that, and we just didn't know what was happening. We just told to stay at home and given programs to do. So it was strange, and no one really anticipated it. I mean, after the Huddersfield game, we just thought we were going into the next game as normal.
And are you guys kind of kept out of the loop with things that are going on higher up in the club and in the Football League and all the rest of it? Like, you guys kind of on a need-to-know basis, do you feel sometimes? So you kind of like find out last minute with all those kind of decisions?
like Angus mentioned the last week, there's kind of a group of us that is probably six, maybe seven of us, who just throughout the lockdown were in constant contact with Angus and the club. And so they were kind of feeding it back to us and then feeding it back to the rest of the boys in the WhatsApp group, or if it wasn't to all 6 or 7 of us, it was to Coops as a skipper, and he would like filter it down to us. And now with the every day being in training, most of the information just comes from Rob Price, the head of medicine, head of the department, and he tells us everything that he gets involved in with the government and the Premier League, like Zoom calls or whatever's going on. So we're kind of kept up to date.
Okay.
And one thing that, because we've had so many Leeds fans get in touch, you know, with the things that they're missing and the things they're looking forward to. One thing loads of you have mentioned that really underlines the whole Leeds experience is family, like Stephen.
Hi, it's Stephen from Marching Out Together. God, nearly a year since we were in the grounds. Who can believe it? I really, really miss the time I spend with my brother pre-match. We go to the pub, we have a pint, we catch up, and just make sure each other's okay. From there, my pre-match usually is going down to the fan zone to meet with fellow Marching Out Together members, and again, just catching up and making sure that everyone's okay. And from there, I really miss going into the ground and catching up with people who I couldn't even tell you the names, to be honest with you. But we just have a real good laugh, and you get to really know these people and have a good time with them. So the atmosphere and being with fellow fans. And then finally, if it's a good win, you miss going out celebrating, don't you? And I think that last game we went to the Huddersfield game where we won, and you just had a feeling that it was going to be our year, was a really good celebration.
This is the Bushnell family, and what I miss most about going to the games is that father-son time I get to spend with my son, watching the football, having a cheeky bet, and just that general father-son bonding time over the football.
What I really miss is when, if we score, and I'd hug my dad, but then you turn around and hug a stranger, and it's just like that thing of being all being together and just hugging random strangers when you celebrate. That's what I miss the most.
Can't wait to get back. Hopefully next season we'll all be back to a packed out Ellen Road.
Yeah.
Oh, you three look really sad as well hearing that. It's heartbreaking when you hear that, isn't it? Because it's huge. Even that, you know, hugging a stranger, you don't know the names of half the people. You just grab them and hug them, don't you? Because it's like a shared moment of joy. And Matt, I know for you, Leeds is a big family thing, and obviously you're a long, long way at the minute. But what have you missed the most about being here?
Well, I mean, it's exactly that description, really. It's just there's something about sport. I mean, it's very tribal, isn't it, in nature? But it makes you just feel like you belong to something, and the community spirit, and that everyone in there has got your back. You know, you're all hoping, all your dreams, your hopes and dreams are all on the same thing, on trying to get a goal and get a win. And it just there's something about that, having that with tens of thousands of people all just hoping for the same thing. There's some sense of belonging there that I think humans as a social animal craves, you know what I mean? And it's one thing that I certainly have missed being over here in the US. I like baseball, but they don't have the same the fans aren't as, I don't want to say not passionate, that's not really fair, but there's just they're not as feral, maybe, I don't know, but they're not as they're just not, it's not quite the same as that. It's more of going out and having a few drinks, and there might be a game going on in the background that you occasionally look over to. It's not 40,000 people, eyes locked at the field, watching every single moment, reacting together. And I don't feel like you get the same level of jubilation when you beat Barnsley 1-0. Like, it's just like, there's just something about the football community, and I have really hugely missed that the years I've been over in the United States. And whenever I've come back to England, I've got to a game, and and I really do miss that. Luckily, having found this, this supporters club here, and found a bunch of Leeds fans that are all from Leeds here in Orlando, it's made such a huge difference for me. Like watching games with those, like I never miss a game now at the pub, and watching it with those guys. And even the first game against Liverpool, I didn't know any of them. I literally just went down and asked if I could come watch it with them. And literally when Pat scored first one, Jack Harrison scored the first one. And when that first goal went in, like we're all just like going crazy. And suddenly now, like we're in a group, we chat all the time. I feel like I've known them for years, and it's Leeds United that's done that. Do you know what I mean? And so I can't wait for everyone back home, knowing what that's meant for me away here, and how it's made me genuinely so much happier having that shared culture and that community. I can't wait for people back home to be able to get there and experience that. It's genuine. It's fulfilling. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's something that humans crave and need, and I can't wait for people to get back to it. They must be missing it so much.
No pressure, Patrick. Well, there's plenty of strangers needing to hug strangers, so you need to keep doing the job when they're allowed back in.
When he said that, I was just picturing when we play away and you score and you just see like about 10 people all jumping on each other. It just is as if there's no chairs there at all. They're all just piling on.
This is the official Leeds United podcast.